Zach Miller taught me something when we were hanging out. It's like, dude, race when you have a full deck. And if you don't have a full deck in your hands, don't let the FOMO kind of hit you and just kind of relax. I don't have a full deck right now.
Welcome back to the Free Outside podcast. And by the time this comes out, I will have either gotten or not gotten the Tahoe Rim Trail record. It'll have come out Friday morning, and I will have hopefully finished sometime Thursday night. Did it happen? I don't know, but wishful thinking will hope so. I have to record this ahead of time, but today's guest we're bringing is a very different runner, an athlete than myself. He does those short and fast things where you run so hard that you taste metal in your mouth. You're redlining from, in the interview, he says 10 minutes in, he'll know if it's going to be a good race or not. It's a very tough thing. He does those things called vertical kilometers, which is the distance of a kilometer, but in vertical feet gained in a few miles. And that's what kind of race it is. It's completely uphill and you're dying. I met him in Steamboat Springs. He runs for Merrill. He ran for the USA in the World Championships for trail running. So he's done everything, traveled many different places, and he's a really fun guy. So, without further ado, our guest, Morgan Elliott.
Yeah, well, it's totally different style than what you do, and I want to hear, when you're doing these races that really, you're going to be redlining for pretty much the whole race, do you know right at the beginning of the race if it's going to be a good day or not, or how does that go? Because you just know you have to send it or you have no chance in the race.
So this would be kind of fun to talk about. Yeah, I don't know if you want to start now or we could talk about it for fun right now.
Let's dive right in right now. We're all good to go. Rolling.
Cool. Yes, man, you typically figure it out. For me, you figure out if it's going to be a good time probably after mile 3.
Okay.
When you're I don't know, between that 15 to 20 minute mark. I'm not running 15-minute 3 mile, but you get it. It's trail running. And if you go out too hard, and in a lot of the races I've done this year, that's the big mistake, is running out too hard. And when you go out to Worlds and you're racing the best, man, they throw down so quick on their first couple miles. And both these races I did at Worlds was the VK, which we know is the 5K up and with 3,000 feet a game. We do this little short 800 meter 1,000 on flat before we approach the steep part. But to get to that steep part this year in Austria, it goes to a gate, and it's pretty narrow gate. And you have, I don't even know how many people are in the race. I don't know, let's just say it's over 100, but you all show up within 3 minutes to this gate.
Yeah.
And you're just funneling and you're standing around waiting your turn to go through this single track. And people are trying to pass you, but really you're walking. If you do a training run up this, you're going about the same speed. And then unfortunately, you come at this walking pace until finally, okay, just like traffic. Okay, now we're able to go a little bit faster. Now we're actually running. So it's pretty unfortunate if you don't go out 4-minute miles, you're not going to be in the front.
So do you scout it? And is that your plan from the beginning? Just pretty much sprint to get to that gate as soon as you can?
Unfortunately, that is kind of the strategy for most folks. For me, I just can't operate that way. And that's kind of why I'm transitioning and realizing at Worlds, races like this style, it's out of your control. I think I'm going to be turning my focus to the marathon.
Oh, cool.
43K. Yeah. And focusing on that kind of you don't want to go out that hard. You shouldn't go out that hard. And the race is made, with, you're 20 miles in, now get the ball rolling, and you don't have to do a Congo line or anything like that. So it's really true and real for my style. I don't know. So I think next time I put all my eggs in all these different baskets to get on the world's team this year. I did everything for the long distance swan, long trail to the short trail to the VK and the classic. And I landed positive with the classic and got in on the VK through some folks who couldn't make it on the team. I was next in line, but so I got the chance to do both.
Yeah. So what's that like to have a goal of get on the world's team? How do you structure your year to have the best chance and be healthy and ready to go for each of those chances?
Yeah. So COVID year, I got to do Thailand as well. So to get on that team, that was kind of just, man, like I just sign up for things out of the blue. This was out on a whim, just like jumped in, hanging out with Zach. I'm blanking on it. Why can't I think of his last name? But he's doing a big movement for people with adapted athletes. It's Zach Movements. I'm gonna get his last name in here in a second. But I jumped in a podcast with him at Broken Arrow at Palisades, and the race director was there, and he's putting on White Face Challenge, Ian Golden, and I just like, he invited me to do it, and I thought about it. I'm like, sure, okay, but it's next week, and I'm racing Broken Arrow this weekend, or whatever. It was like July 4th, and then I get on the team. So I only do it a couple times where I target these races, and that one I had no intention of getting on the U.S. team until a week before it. And then after I get to go to Thailand and I got COVID, and just was right after Madeira, racing for the Golden Trail Series finale, I was like, man, I need redemption. And it was a COVID year. So the following year was Austria. And they usually give you 2 years before the next race. And I was like, I want to make this team no matter what. So I showed up, did the first one, Formidable 50K. And so basically my calendar looked like everything was worlds, like focus, like every race, because they have races to qualify months before the race at Worlds. And if you take top 2 or top 3, like Lake Sonoma, you get on the team. And then they do resumes. And I was just not interested in putting in a resume. I like to earn my spots by placing good. Not to take it away from anybody who does resumes. It makes sense sometimes with your scheduling. But every race I did was focused on getting on that team, and it came down to the wire for sure. Like I did Formidable 50K in February, then I did Lake Sonoma at the end of May, and that didn't go well either. I was leading it to the turnaround, and everything was going awesome, and I was feeling really strong. Nutrition got the best of me, and I was just throwing up everywhere. Like to think I'm getting a little better at that. And then I'm kind of diverse. I've done 100s, 50s, VKs and stuff. So I go do the classic and the VK at Sunapee. And that goes pretty well for me. And I take 4th there, and then I ended up taking 2nd the following day. So it took my 4th attempt to finally get on the team. And then, yeah, it was a busy spring.
Yeah. So when so much is riding on each of these races, do you have like a tally in your head of what place you're in and where you need to move up to secure a spot on the team just in the race? Is that the only thing you're racing to? Yeah.
The entire time. Especially, yeah, every time. Like Lake Sonoma, I just was like, oh man, all you need to do is place top 3. And then the opportunity hit, and I was like, screw it, I want to win.
Yeah.
But for like the VK, you're counting, and it was kind of funny. Like I get to the mile mark, I previewed the course, and I was in 13th place a mile in. I'm like, gosh, these guys are going out so hard. And it was relatively fast runnable. And then I just pick them off in the woods, and I know what place I'm in. I'm like, gosh darn it, I'm in 4th, like, or 4th American or whatever. Because there's 2 Canadians that showed up, and they were really zippy. But I was like, I already knew I was 1 place away.
Yeah.
Which was a big bummer.
So do you go in with any sort of race plan or goals for time, or is it just completely racing to the field every single time?
You're racing the field, and when it comes to those things, if you go for time, you don't know if those guys are going to have a good day, and their time's like significantly, they're going for faster time. So you really are racing the field and being strategic. You're playing chess and you're counting who's in front of you. And when you want to make your move, you have that idea, like knowing your own body and how long the course is, because the classic was 2 loops. So that was cool. You could kind of tell how much energy it took to do 1 loop and know to save it on the first loop, because people went guns blazing on the first loop. And then you just start picking them off. So the next day was the classic, and same spot, mile in, I was in 13th place. Yeah, it was a good day for me, and I stayed in control and just picked them all off, the competitors on the second lap too. And yeah, the downhill and the technical terrain is like, you focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
And you really push it there. And yeah, definitely excel in your favorite spots. And then when it comes down to, just kind of grind out the spots where you're kind of decent at, like the flats, just try not to expend too much energy. And for me, the flats are kind of my weak point. Just kind of hanging.
So I'm curious really on VKs. They sound so crazy. So what part in it are your legs just screaming, yet you have to force yourself to keep going?
Dude, yeah, man, it is different than what you're used to. Totally just hard, right? Like you're tasting your blood in your mouth and you just want to cough, and your legs are just trash totally, like where they start getting wobbly and shaky when it comes to like a little tiny downhill like Broken Arrow has. Ugh, it hurts even when you cross the finish line. You're like waiting 5 minutes for the pain to kind of like go away. But the question was, when do you what?
Yeah, so it's not a very long race, both in time or distance, but it just seems like it feels so long. When do you sort of hit that wall and you still have like a mile or two to go and a couple thousand feet? Is it really soon, and that's the battle and why they're so hard?
Yeah. Your lactic acid kind of shows up 3 minutes in, and that's like the same thing with workouts. That's when you're like, oh boy, here we go, we're redlining. And that's usually, you can feel good like the first 3 minutes and push as hard as you want. And it's not until after that 3 minutes you're like, I made a mistake. Crap, I'm gonna pay for this now. I cannot get my heart rate down. So that's just experience. But yeah, we're talking a race that the world record's like, what, 32, 34 minutes, somewhere in between there. But some races, kind of like a 5K, you have long VKs, you have shorter VKs. Like what we did in Steamboat was a shorter VK for sure, by a lot, and not as high. Yeah, you gotta have that experience to know what your body can do for that type of race. For me, the way I race VK is I can break it up into quarters, but I also just turn my mind off and like, okay, it's 40 minutes of pain. It's like a 40-minute workout. You can do 40-minute workout. And I just think of it that way. Because you kind of know that's kind of the records around then or whatever. So
are you looking at your watch too at all? Or are you trying to not look at your watch?
I typically don't. Some races I found beneficial running with a heart rate monitor and just like, okay, do not go over like 176. But you can't always rely on that. So as far as looking at time, sometimes like you do workouts, you try to ignore your watch and not look at the time, because if you look at it all the time, you're like, oh my gosh, it was only 5 minutes. This is horrible. So when it's advantageous and when I know I have energy and I'm like, still have a lot of energy, should I be using it right now? You look at your watch, it's like, okay, we're 20 minutes from the top. I think I can surge here. So you kind of make the watch your friend in that way.
Yeah. And so what happens in like a VK or a shorter race when you realize it's not your day? Does all that motivation to keep redlining disappear? Is it really hard to even keep going? Do you have like an example of that?
The demons. Yeah. Do you have examples of that? Gosh, I wish I had no examples. Yeah, it happens, unfortunately, a bit this summer. Just like legs are just heavy today. Sometimes that happens and you get over that hump and the legs just like turn off, like, or in a good way, like the heaviness goes away and it turns off, and you just start firing like fresh poppy legs. That's amazing if that can happen. Happens for me for workouts, but on race day, hasn't been so good, especially when you're doing it and like, well, I have another race the following day, or 3 days from now to do the classic, for example, and that happened at Sunapee and Worlds. Even at Broken Arrow, you do a VK, because VKs usually are the first race, and then you have a longer distance the next couple days later. But I just try to run it true. I try not to ever turn off, because you never know what's happening up front. You don't know if somebody got hurt, or if they're hitting the wall and they're totally walking. Like if you lose your flame, you're in a VK, you're done. And that's another spot I can grab. So especially when you're running for the US, like your team, you do not turn off. You keep firing, even if your points aren't going to score. You just don't want to have any regrets, and it's fun. That's a big part of it too. You want to challenge yourself, and you train so hard. If you how are you going to feel if you don't give it all you have? You're going to have a lot of regrets when you're back at home, not giving it your best. So that's, if you're not having a good day and you're not firing, at least give it your best that you can do on that day.
Yeah, so, and you have no DNFs pretty much. It's pretty incredible that you just gut out most things, it seems like.
I don't know if that's a pride thing, but yeah, when it comes to a total injury, man, I did not want to drop out of my one DNF I have on ultra sign up, whatever. But there's a time and place for ultra signups and for DNFs. And yeah, for me, it's the experience. If you didn't have a good day, just think about all the people that are out there doing it. The mid packers, the back of the packers, they're not DNFing if they're having a bad day. They're going to finish.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a sign of respect to not DNF if you're not hurt. Just suck it up, swallow your pride, and just walk it in. So what? You have an A race coming up. Don't exert yourself, I guess, in that regard if it's really, really bad.
Yeah. But why do you think so many pros just end up DNFing? It's crazy just being at Javelina, half the top group just says, not my day, I'm done.
Well, a lot of it's their sponsors, and they missed out on their spot for money, and they want to save their legs because they can get money at another race. Finances is a big part, and also just, I don't know, some people have this ultra sign-up score they have to have at such a high scoring rate, and it's whatever. No judgment on them if they want to drop off, even though it sounds like I am. But yeah, injuries are a big reason why I would DNF. But if you're not injured and you're healthy and you're just having an off day and you just don't want to suffer for the next 20 miles, that's not what you signed up for, whatever. But
yeah, I always think of it just it's a sign of respect to the course. During a couple, 2 or 3 awful races I've had, I've slogged it to the end as just the course won today, but I'm still going to get through it.
Right. And you could just totally drop down and just enjoy it, start high-fiving hands and spending a little bit more time at the aid station. And it's a totally different experience, and you can make it fun. Just change your perspective on it. And it could be extremely enjoyable if you're just doing that. And then the other double-edged sword of that is if you start training your body to slow down in a race, that's bad habits, and then you're going to want to do it all the time. And it's fun. I don't see that being a thing.
No, I get more fire from just being in the back of the pack, slogging it through with these people who are accomplishing a 5-year goal they've trained for. It really gives so much better perspective than just being in the front with, wasn't my day, gonna try again in a month.
Totally. And then even pacing people like that. You see a lot of pros just, they'd often tend to pace the front of the runners, but try pacing somebody in the mid-pack. Pace somebody in 100 who's going to make golden hour. That's a totally different experience. And it's inspiring to see how hard they're working. And they're out there almost twice as long. And
and their determination is probably higher than a lot of pros. Their one goal is to make the finish line under cutoff, and they're so resolute. They're not focused on all the little things. They're just whatever I need to get there.
Right. And nutrition applies the same as the pros too. You gotta stay on top of this, and it's cool.
it's such a cool sport where like the best in the world get on start lines with people who are just probably going to do one race and stuff. It's so level compared to like an NBA game or something.
Yeah. Well, for you, like, how do you have such a long distance race coming in, and to do a through hike, you hear my examples of like redlining, going to a VK. How do you do that? Like, do you break it into days, nights, like sunsets, sunrises? And it's a totally different type of pain.
This is why it's fun talking to you, because yeah, the redlining thing is something I'm so new to and I think is fun. But yeah, the through hiking or FKT realm is like got that dialed before I even ran an ultra marathon. But I break almost everything into thirds. And so
yeah,
like get through that first third and just sort of learn your body, figure out what you're feeling during that effort. And then the middle third is you sort of maintain or adapt to whatever you felt in that first third. And then the last third is where you give up sleep, you throw everything at it, you just start really pushing. And it sounds sort of similar to the shorter stuff, because in an FKT, my goal is always to give myself a chance at the end. And, you know, if you're within striking distance, that's all you could ever hope for with how competitive some of it is. And that's really just the goal. Like if I have a chance to push for 70 hours and get the FKT, that's all I want to do is have a chance. And if it doesn't go well, that's okay. But it's just aim for that chance at the end.
Yeah. It's like I would say, 3 minutes in, if it's going to be a good day, 12 hours in,
maybe like 2 days in. Cause I don't know, that's the hard thing, especially when you do like a taper cycle, you sort of feel awful and doubt your body right at the beginning anyways. So it's almost just throw the first few miles out. But when it's such a short race, you don't have quite the same luxury.
Gosh. Yeah. And I guess a lot of your FKTs are like 3 days, and then you have some that are just 50, 60.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's different. Totally different durations. Do you kind of like categorize like the John Muir Trail and the PCT as like similar, or they're totally different animals?
Man, I think I go into everyone as if it's super different and unique, with a little bit different strategy or different gear or different everything. I build every one of the FKTs from the ground up on a spreadsheet with goals on where to get to and the current record. And just because the trails are all so different, and then my style is going to have to be different, what I carry. That's kind of the fascination with the longer FKTs is before you start, if it's self-supported, you have to have packed all the right gear for the next 2 weeks or three-day push, or else you're already screwed. So
yeah, self-supported.
Yeah, it makes it fun. So man, what is it like running for your country? I think this is so cool, and I want to dive into it a little bit. So do you, like, where do you meet up, and do you fly over together, or do you meet up in a foreign country just out of the blue and say hi to people maybe you've never met?
Right. Yeah. Well, the way they operate as far as the US goes, you get reimbursed with your flight, which is so awesome. A lot of countries don't get to have that opportunity and fortunateness to have that. But basically, you just arrive at the airport. They can do a shuttle and pick you up, and then you're just with your team. And it's cool that way. For me, on the other hand, I take it, and then also some other athletes, they take advantage of the free ticket, and they open up their entire summer after that, and they're like, man, I'm going to race in Europe while I'm here and not worry about going back. Like Ricky Gates is really well known for this. He's like my favorite athlete to follow and pay attention to in his lifestyle. And he'll fly to Europe to do Worlds, and then he got a free flight there, and then he buys a bike, and he is connected to the race directors in that area where Worlds was, or just around, and he gets invited to go do all these fun races. And he's touring and staying in hostels on a bike he just got, kind of like a Craigslist thing, you know? Yeah. So just kind of being able to do it that way. But For me, it was going to Zagama, which was probably my favorite race I've ever done. And it was extremely fun. So I got to go to the Bas district, and from there, kind of went to London and got a cheap flight to Austria to go to Worlds. And then I stayed 2 weeks before, have a good friend from New Zealand, Wifton Hill, shout out. And we stayed for 2 weeks at high altitude and trained before Worlds. So eventually the team met up at the hotel or whatever. And then I would just, take a bus and find my way into Innsbruck. But before that, him and I just hung out at a hostel with the cows up high at like a ski resort, just running and exploring trails and seeing waterfalls and seeing cool sights and going to the Dolomites, just making a trip out of it. But to represent your country, it's pretty special. You definitely want to give it your best, be at your best. Wearing the stars and stripes is kind of like my biggest goal I always wanted to do once I graduated college. And I remember writing it down in my goal journal of what I wanted to do and get on the world's team. And I gave it some wax, and it was only like one race until very recently, the past 2 years. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted to do that. Yeah, Ian, I'll go do whiteface. Holy smokes. Don't give up. I'm in 4th place at the time. And unfortunately, one of the athletes in front of me, he passed out, and I passed him, and I came in 3rd. It's like, whoa, don't give up. I got the worst stone bruise in that race. I was limping down the mountain. Meanwhile, he's having like a heat stroke in front of me. And I was just going to give up. But as I smelled blood when I saw him swerving side to side on the trail, he was hitting it pretty hard, and boom, got to go to Thailand. It was so cool.
Yeah. So do you get the uniform in the mail ahead of time, and then do you just like put it on and take photos in the mirror? Because it's like a big goal. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Totally. Yeah. I try to be low key about it. I don't know. Mercedes could tell you a little bit more when I got my kit. It was kind of cool. I think the first thing I did was FaceTime my mom.
That's
that
so
was
cool.
special. And it's like, look, I did it. Like, woohoo. But it's so cool being able to, there's so many people in this country, and to think that I'm one to be fortunate and one of the best, I guess, to be able to represent this distance. It's a special feeling, and all you can do is just give it your best.
Yeah. And so what's it like at the start line or leading in? Because now, unlike nearly every trail race, you have a team. Is there like a strategy or camaraderie, or what are you guys talking about leading into this?
It brings you immediately back to college, or if you're familiar with just a sports team of community, like you're warming up together and you're talking strategy, like when are you going to go? Like, it's not you versus your teammates anymore. When it was trying to get on the team, yeah, you're totally trying to score, and it's possible. The U.S. does well, and they have a history of getting on that podium top 3. So, yeah, it gets pretty serious. Like Joe Gray, Dan Kurtz, Liam was on my team for the VK. Yeah, we're talking strategy hard and when to surge, and it's all about trying to lift each other up, having our best race.
Are you knowing going in that you're gonna try to run near or with someone else on the team, or do you all have individual strategies, or is there a benefit in that camaraderie using it during the race?
I think that comes way more into play for the 80K runners. For a race that's only 40 minutes and not like 10 plus hours, there's only so much control, and everybody's so packed together, you kind of lose each other as far as your colors, and you're all mixed in. But you kind of have an idea, like we share with each other like what we're going to do, and if it's a good idea, blah, blah, blah. And for the most part, I kind of had an idea just by place of what I did at the qualifying races to get in. It's like Joe Gray, obviously, he's the man. He's fast as can be, won worlds and things. Just hasn't gotten that VK one. He's going to be up front. So that's not my neighborhood. But the guy like Liam, we ran pretty much the same in the VK Classic. Yeah, he'll be kind of in my neighborhood, and if I see him, I know I'm kind of on a good pace, because you can totally get lost in that wave of really fast athletes, for sure. But yeah, that answers it.
Yeah. And then how, I guess at the end of it, are you just like, you gave it everything, and then do you wash it away, or do you dwell on it because it's such a big stage as well?
Whew. Yeah, you're making me go back. It's cool. Gosh, I keep talking about the VK as opposed to the Classic, because I think I had way more fun in the VK.
Yeah.
The Classic was so much road at Innsbruck. It was such a bummer for me. It's not my style. I need roots and rocks and technical. But it is what it is. You can't control it. But the VK, at least there was roots and rocks. And there's just like such a final push near the end where you're going up like a really steep ski slope. Like you want to use your hands and bear crawl kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's insane. And you're definitely just feeling your heart in your head, and getting all the feels. But you decompress by, I don't know, as long, for me, I've given it all I had in that race, and I get to the top and I'm just, there's nothing there. And like, it's a cool feeling to know that you gave it all you got, and there's nothing to dwell on or regret or anything, even though it wasn't the performance you wanted or how far back you were. You just shake it off. It's like, not my day. It's okay.
Yeah.
I gave it what I had, and unfortunately training wasn't right. I know I'm better than this sometimes, is what I say, but I move on pretty quickly personally. Some other people may not, but I'm pretty gentle on myself, which may or may not be a good thing.
Well, is it like after the race a little bit, when you get back to normal life, is it a bit of a low? I know after my adventures and stuff, it's hard to get back to normal life because you've hit like this peak goal and this peak experience. Is that a pretty hard transition?
After Thailand, I was pretty unsatisfied, to be honest. Kind of just saying what I did about Innsbruck, but I wanted to get on the team. So the fire was there. I was like, I need to train. Like, I had a little bit of a late start to get on that team that season because of injury in that the late fall or whatever. So yeah, I started training really hard and made a focus. So the fire was lit. And I just wanted to make it again. So this time afterwards, it's like, okay, there's definitely more goals to be had. You can't just settle. I don't know. I think there's something special about not being satisfied sometimes. I mean, there's one thing to dwell in it, but also that's different, I think, than not being satisfied. If you like win the championship and woohoo, you're done, you kind of tone down your training. You're like, oh, I made it. I reached my goal. But for me, I always feel like I missed my goal. So I need to work harder. And I think that brings me to my training and makes me focus on it a little bit more and work harder.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you just pick out new races and try to get sponsored. For me, that was like a big thing because I wasn't sponsored.
Yeah. When you do go after something like that and you have that fire again, I mean, I think a big thing with a lot of ultra runners right now is overtraining is pretty prevalent. How do you smartly use that fire rather than end up injured again?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's helpful having a coach for sure, and kind of having somebody you trust and rely on and can look at your training and take a step back in another lens. But for me, I didn't have a coach, and a lot of it was all on me. So I think it's, again, a big thing is experience. I've been running since I was little. I got to run in high school and college, and you kind of know your body when you're doing workouts, and like if you're on the knife's edge, injuries, you got to stay on top of it. Been to a lot of physical therapists. So like with all these types of injuries I've had, I know how to prevent them pretty okay. Sure, you can slip on a route and there you got trauma or you smack a tree or something. That's one thing, but just being preventative and foam rolling and stretching and doing your warm-ups and not pulling anything is important. Drinking a lot of water and all those, get enough sleep
Yeah.
for the most part. But overtraining, for me, it's more like over racing this season. And it's always a learning process. I feel like I put in a lot of races this year early on, especially with like Lake Sonoma being in May. I did like 11 races by the time at the end of June. I've had done 11 races.
So 2 a month pretty much.
Gosh, I did, well, BKs are so short, but I counted them.
Yeah.
But like between this time frame of Broken Arrow, I did 2 and 2 in like 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. It was ridiculous because it was such a quick turnaround.
Yeah. Are you recovered for things to do it again, or what? Why are you going out and doing that?
I'm trying to be a little bit more smarter. I think it's FOMO is a lot of it, and I just enjoy it a lot. I have a lot of fun racing. And I have a hard time turning things down.
Yeah.
So if I get offered a free entry, but you know, it's living, it's fun, it's traveling, it's experiencing new places and making new friends. And that's kind of why I think I agree to do all of these things. And, you know, you learn the hard way sometimes. So being a little bit more strategic this year and only doing 9 races is kind of the goal. But yeah, eventually you kind of get your body a sense of if you're overtraining or not, because your workouts are, you didn't make it so far on your first rep versus, you know, your second rep, you didn't make it as far as you did on your first rep, and you kind of just know what your body's doing. It's time to like calm down.
So what are your, for training for like a big race, like, I don't know, something you want to do while out, maybe like Pikes Peak or Sunapee or something, what is like your peak week for miles and vert? Now I'm curious because it's just so different than my training, I think.
Gosh. So yeah, this season going into Pikes, I did have a coach, but wasn't really that much vert or training. It was kind of unfortunate. I kind of had this bad COVID in August, and September is the race of Pikes, mid-September. So my mileage was kind of 60. I was sitting pretty low for me.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like on average, like a normal training week for me is like 80, 90, 100 can be a great week. But 60 is kind of blah. I don't feel like I'm getting what I want. If I'm at 60, I better be doing a lot of speed. But if I'm at 100, I'm probably only doing like 1 speed workout a day or a week. Sorry. But that's kind of where I float, 60, 90.
Do you take, because I actually, in a good block, you just take so much confidence from that. Do you think hitting numbers like that is just this confidence going into stuff too?
I never really thought about that. I don't think so.
Okay.
I know like when I do 50Ks going into Kodiak, I know now, like, I knew going into it, my training wasn't very high. So like it was a long 50K, but like those last few miles, I knew if I was doing my own thing and running like 100-mile weeks and not really listening to my coach, to be honest, I would have been better off. My mileage was really low, but it does give you confidence in some regard if you're hitting hundreds, but it could also be like, was I training too much? Was that too many miles? So it could kind of go both ways, give you less confidence because you were working too much, but there's definitely a lot to it, paying attention to it.
Yeah. Well, having done well at everything from like VKs to 100 milers, what is your favorite distance or type of running?
Yeah.
Or do you even know yet?
I know, right? I do think my favorite distance is kind of like 3 to 5 hours. And it's like that, but also not so much distance, but type of trail and technicality. And I really like the challenge of hard footing and throwing in hands even. It's that steep. So I'm attracted to those styles of running. I feel like that's like Zagama is like the shittier the better. And that day for Zagama, that was pretty shitty weather, and it was so much fun. And I just enjoy it a lot when it's your mind's just so focused on where your feet are going and that. So I would say 50Ks right now, and next year a lot of my distances are focused on that. I get a race OCC, so I'm gonna have to really like that 55K distance for sure.
Yeah. Well, I like that you brought that up, and going into some stuff that's not completely my forte. I always hope for like the worst conditions possible. Do you have the same thing?
Yeah. Even on like a long trail though, when you have to sleep in it.
Well, as long as it's just a race, so it's the same for everybody. It's like,
yeah, you're wishing blue skies and dry trail.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel the same thing then? You just said that the more miserable, the better. Do you think you do well in that?
I love it. I love it when people are like looking at the weather and like, oh man, it's gonna rain during our race. I'm like, yes. Like, anything that can get in the heads of my competitors, I feel like I feel sort of indestructible. I like to tell myself that. I'm like, bring on the mud, bring on this misery. Like, you know, my hands suck when it's cold, but that's one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's advantageous for me.
Yeah, it's super fun because it's you against everyone else, and it's the same course. So it's like, if I can just suck less at this terrible condition course, then I'm going to do really well.
That's cool. You like the same.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Are there any races in your mind that kind of did suck like that and you really thrived?
Oh, I don't know about the thrive part, but I had a lot of fun. So like Zagama and the Basque district, just like northern Spain, that was raining and totally garbage type of weather where you're starting with like a rain jacket. And it's pretty chilly. And you just got through mud that's past your ankles up to your shins in a lot of parts. And lots of fog. That's kind of a bummer. You kind of missed out on the views, but there was plenty of fog, and then the rain would stop. It would be windy, and you're like putting on your visor, just kind of block the wind from smacking you in the face. Yeah, that race threw everything at you with, you know, you're going to climb up high. It started to snow. You're putting on your jacket again. And you're just going down like a rock street field. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
There's horses at some point running parallel to you. And every single section of that course was very different than the one you just finished going across. Mm-hmm. Had a lot of variety.
Yeah. What's the atmosphere like at the European races? Do more people come out? Is there more energy?
Yeah. There are so many low-key, fast dudes show up to European races. You're like, who are you? You're like so quick, but you never heard of them. You know, they're just a low-key crusher, or it's just my ignorance. And you know, they're probably really well known in the community, but they don't show up to the races you do normally. But they have a lot of spectators, which make it so much more thrilling to hear the cowbells, and you know, they're shouting out just their encouragement in their own language, which is super rad. And yeah, it does have a very different vibe than American races, where you really, unfortunately, you absent that and only get it at 8 stations.
Yeah. So when there's that many spectators, do you have to like pick your spots if you have to pee or something? Because people are watching the whole time.
Yeah. I feel like that, and even photographers. Yeah. You know, sometimes you just whip it out and keep running while you're peeing. Yeah, for sure. Like that style of running. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to hold it totally in European races. I can only imagine UTMB if you're like one of the lead runners. Yeah. There's just no privacy in those races, which can be cool. And also sometimes it'd probably be like, all right, I'm tired of this.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be distracted from whatever you're doing.
So that would be so cool doing a through hike and just kind of having a very different atmosphere.
You live in your head, especially on the longer FKTs. There's no external motivation, and you're just appreciative of the beauty and stuff, but any motivation to go fast is just all inside you. It's so crazy.
You don't even have crew.
No crew. Yeah.
Do you make friends, but you won't see them again? Kind of.
Yeah. So it's hard to make friends in a few minute conversation, but like you're cordial to anyone else on the trail because you just want human contact for a few minutes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's totally different. But you're
Yeah.
still staying focused and you're like, this is still a big deal. I'm still here doing this event of my own accord. And I
Yeah.
know when I finish, I'll find my community again and it'll be okay.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. You're just, I don't even know what's going through your head. It's a goal that you've had. You've put in so much for that goal that I guess there is a lot of pressure going into it too, because, you can't always get 10 days off to go do something and figure it out. So you lay it all
Gosh,
on the line.
that's a lot of food to carry.
Yeah, I think the most I've done 9.5 day carry for
Oh my gosh.
unsupported on the Colorado Trail. That was the dumbest one. That was so hard.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
very neat.
Yeah. Well, and wrap up here, but I'm curious of all the races you've done, which is like your favorite, just with atmosphere and what you would recommend on there.
Yeah, we talked about it. Clearly, I'd praise Zagama. If you can get the opportunity to do that race, it's just about a marathon, and it offers so much different types of terrain, the people, the culture. Like they speak Basque, and it's very enjoyable trying to challenge yourself to learn a new language and just like hello, thank you, how are you, good morning, whatever. Um, just how different it is from everything else I've experienced. I really enjoy Zagama. But I've gotten to do Transvulcania 2 times, and that's in La Palma, which is an island, Canary Island, off the coast of Spain, or yeah, Africa, really, but it's a Spanish country. That was a super fun race, being on a volcano and just how different it is from everything else. Yeah, dude, I want to go back to Madeira though. I love those tropical islands. They're so cool. I've
Yeah.
never even been to Hawaii, but I've been to Spain and Portugal's Hawaii's, and Madeira, and uh, gosh, there's something about being at sea level and just climbing 8,000 feet. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And do you have views of the ocean and then everything
Dude,
around the island and stuff?
you get everything. It's the fog, especially when it like just moves out of your way and you can get a really cool view because there's a lot of fog sometimes. It's special in the sun rays and you're just like on another planet.
Yeah.
That's very neat.
Okay. Last question, because I think it'll be kind of funny. What's the like trail or interval workout that you get that you just like dread? Because I just can't imagine some of the stuff you do to practice redlining for so long.
I think I had really good success with being out in North Carolina and across the road where I'm at actually. Man, I did a lot of hill workouts. I call them tough hill days. And they are mean. I kind of tricked myself to like thinking they're my favorite, but really my long run's my favorite. But just doing laps of this route called High Top, High Windy, and I would do it like 4 or 5 times. The 5th time was because I'm like, don't be a bitch. Come on, this is gonna make you strong. But this is like early on. But you just kind of go pretty darn hard up this route for like 9 minutes. And then you have a cool down, come around and then do it again. But typically it's that 8-minute interval session of keeping your heart rate up at like 176, 180s, which is pretty high, I know, for some. But holding it for 8 minutes and then having like a 4-minute cool down and doing that 6 times or, yeah, about that. And vice versa, 6 minutes, 8 times.
Yeah. I mean, 8 minutes can
But
feel
it's usually uphill.
so, even like 3-minute intervals can feel so long if you're pushing hard. I can't imagine
Yeah.
8 minutes too.
Yeah. So if the season's going well, and then like last night, I was just doing 3 and 2 minutes because the race is coming up in 3 days. But yeah,
Yeah. So what's next for you going into
I'm gonna
next year?
race. Yeah, I signed up on a whim. Oh, going into next year.
Well, and now and just goals for next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna race shut in. Like I was mentioning earlier on this which is over here in Asheville. And then November 18th, I'm going out to race Bentonville. It's the Dirt Circus in the Ozarks. So pretty looking forward to racing Andy Wacker, Dan Kurtz, and Christian Allen. So could only find the fastest in the sport. But we did get a race again. So that's going to be pretty wild. I just love the community and the competition. So hopefully I respond well there. And then calendar, I have down Desert Rats 50K. But I already got into OCC, which is cool. This would be kind of for 2025 if I want, and just a good shakeout race. And I'm talking to my sponsor, kind of get a good idea, but I would love to do the Skyrunning World Series stuff. So gonna pick out some of those. It's kind of the plan, and OCC is the A goal for the fall. And
so staying in the shorter realm compared to the longer
I think
stuff
for a little
now.
bit.
Yeah.
I will not say goodbye to hundreds. I am probably going to find that again. I might get antsy and even find doing that next year, but I also have like a route I really want to do in Summit County where I'll be living in Colorado. So there's this route I made, and I just want to put it down and just enjoy the mountains and do this 120-mile loop in Summit. Yeah.
Yeah. Unsupported or supported?
If people want to come along, it would probably be supported if I meet people. So it would be supported.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for jumping on. This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the chance, Jeff. And you're recovering after doing Javelina.
Yeah. I mean, I'm stoked to run again, but I'm forcing myself to do recovery the right way.
Dude. So 1,100 miles of racing this year.
Yeah, somewhere around that. Yeah,
it's so cool. I think I'm like 200 miles on racing.
Well, and my volume for the year is only at like 3,000, so a third of my miles are race miles this year.
Gosh, you're like racing into shape. That's what it is.
Or just never losing it, I guess.
That's so cool. You're definitely the ox between us. Super strong.
Well, I wanted to just really figure out and learn more about racing. So the best way to do it is to do more of it. And so won't be as busy next year, but the goal this year was just learn more, figure out racing a lot more.
Yeah, man. That's good. Yeah, it's always learning, never stops.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for doing this, and I'll let you know when it's going up. Launching the whole thing in about a week, so hopefully
cool, man.
A couple weeks after that.
Sweet. Yeah, feel free to reach out anytime if you want to focus on anything else or whatever. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can connect and run together too.
Yeah, man. That'd be great.
Where are you moving to somewhere?
Yeah, moving from Durango and up in Breckenridge this winter.
Cool. Are you going to do a lot of skiing, or what's your winter?
I'm doing tons of it. I work on the mountain, so my job is skiing. So nice. I'm all about enjoying and being outside, getting that sunshine. So it's called mountain safety. Ski all day, and then I'll be having 3 days off. I could find another job doing like Nordic instructing or something, but I might just enjoy it and not go do things on my own.
Enjoy it. I lived in Tahoe for a winter, and it's just so cool to enjoy it and keep enough days to realize you probably won't live there forever, so at least soak it up while you can.
What are you going to be doing in Bozeman for the time being?
I mean, I just do everything's remote, so just in Bozeman specifically, I do skate skiing, backcountry skiing most of the winter, and run enough to never stop.
Yeah, backcountry classic is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah,
that's very cool, being out and just making your own tracks and listening to the soft snowfall. Yeah, man, that's so fun.
Yeah, it's the most peaceful time of year too. Like not even birds are chirping. You get silence, just the gentle wind, the snow. It's so cool.
Yeah, that'd be super rad to come up to Bozeman, but you're always welcome to Breck.
Yeah, I mean,
we have a lot of
I go down there a
backcountry.
lot less in the winters, but a lot of good friends
Yeah.
in Denver. I lived there for 5 years, so a lot of roots.
Oh, damn. Yeah. I know.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for talking, dude.
Yeah, I'll let you get back to life and good luck in the race. In like 2 days.
Yeah, and then not learning from mistakes. Just gonna sign up another one and really race some fast dudes. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think with that kind of thing, there's so few opportunities you get to measure yourself against some of the best that you might as well try to soak up as many as possible.
Yeah. Zach Miller taught me something when we were hanging out. It's like, dude, race when you have a full deck. And if you don't have a full deck in your hands, don't let the FOMO kind of hit you and just kind of relax. I don't have a full deck right now. But
so you're
whatever.
not taking this to heart.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I
Next
don't know if Zach, it seems like with his results, he doesn't always completely live by that either, but it's too hard.
Yeah, what a crusher.
No, legend. All right, I'll see ya.
Cool. Keep it up.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the interview. That's all we have for today. I'm having to put this together ahead of time because between now and when I'm home again, I'm trying an FKT and I'm going out to a race to crew and support some athletes I coach that are running it before finally returning back to Bozeman. And I'm trying to stay ahead and consistent with these podcasts. So thank you so much. Hopefully I got that FKT. And that's it. Stay elite, my friends.